Hello, code alumni. Today in this tutorial, we are going to be discussing about JavaScript fetch. And when you are dealing with fetch, it's either you are fetching something from maybe an API or you have a JSON file open somewhere that you want to fetch data from and use in your code. So in this tutorial, we are going to be dealing with fetch, and we are going to use it to fetch external data from an API. We are going to be using one open API, and we are going to use it to fetch some information and display it on our console. So let's get started. Here in my browser, here in my code editor, I want to open up my index.html file. Great. So I'm opening up index.html file, and I want to open an app.js file because definitely it's JavaScript we are dealing with. Let me close this. So inside my HTML file, I want to bring out the usual document structure by using Shift and 1, and then here we have it. I want to change this document to something similar to what we will be doing. It's not necessary to, I just want to change it. So let me just have maybe a H1 here that says testing fetch API. Definitely we are going to be testing fetch API, and you are going to see how I'm going to do that in a few minutes. So some of you are familiar with using the fetch method to do some things, while some of you have no idea how it works. So in this video, you are going to learn how to use it in your future tutorial, and maybe use it to fetch some API and use it to display some API, or maybe use it to fetch API and send information to that particular API. So I'm going to define my URL. So const URL, which is going to be equals to a link. The link, that particular link we want to fetch data from. So I'm going to go here inside JSON placeholder, and here we can find free API that we can use, and then we can fetch and do a lot of stuff with it. So you can see here the serious example of how we can do it. So I want to copy this definitely. So and then I can just paste it inside my URL. So that's the URL I'm going to be using, but I'm not going to be using it with this to do. I definitely want to use it with photos because I want to fetch some photos, probably photos URL. So now I'm great. So since I've already do it, you can see we can copy the one for posts, comment, albums, photos, to-dos, and users, but I'm definitely using the photo one. So that's why I changed my own endpoint to be photos. So now I can use the fetch method. So the fetch methods will contain the URL. That means the parameter I'm going to pass in is URL. Trust me, you can just pass the link directly in there, but I prefer to do it like this. So I just set it to URL. Then I want to make sure it do something after it's fetched that URL. That means the link I pasted up there. So what do I want it to do? So I can just like get the response, and then response. I can say response.json. So this response.json actually do convert my response that I get into a JSON file. So it will be able to use easily. So and then I can say data to get the data from that JSON, and then I can just console log my data. So I want to see my data inside console.log. That's exactly what I want to do. So then great. So and then probably you can see we have just 2 lines of code to fetch it, then set the response to JSON, and great. I want to just copy my path, open up inside the browser and see if everything is working cool as I expect. So great. Let's see. So here now, let me open my console because I use console.log. So I want to open up my console. Then you can see arrays, bunch of arrays here. That means it's fetch it does exactly what I want it to do. We can see an object of ID, album ID title, and we can see a lot of things: thumbnail, URL, title, and URL. So it fetch the photos with other information that are there. So great. That means our fetch method is working perfectly. So now what I want to do actually is probably maybe I want to map through the data to get one particular let me see data, not just all of them, because now it's displaying a bunch of array with a lot of information that I might not need. So I want to map through it. So data.map, which is going to map through the bunch of the array we have inside my console. And then I want to get possibly I can give it any name, but I want to just give it a name of chunk, maybe that particular data, like a single one. So I can just say maybe you should just give me the log, you should just log that particular chunk. So all these array now, each one of them should serve as a chunk. So as you can see, so each of one of them will serve as a chunk. Then I want to log in the chunk dot possibly, let me see, console.log, sorry, chunk dot title. So I want to log the title. So each one of them should just display the title of each one of them. So I can just head over to refresh my array. So you can get the album ID, you can get the ID, you can get thumbnail, URL, title, or URL. There's any one of them is easy accessible now since you have mapped through the array, as easy as that. So you can see inside my my console we're having a bunch of title here now. So because now we have mapped through the array and get only the title, I can just change it to URL and it's going to give me the URL of each image I wanted to display or each image I wanted. So, and that's just it. I can set this as maybe possibly a data that will display inside my HTML page or anything. I can use it anyhow I want. So album ID, so if I want to get the ID of each album here, so you can see now we have access to each one and individual properties that are inside the array. So that's one advantage of using the map method to get in through a particular data. So I believe now you have already understand how the fetch method works, and you can be able to use it to display something and use DOM to like render it inside